Hi, what's going on? This is going to be a video guide for the bring your own posters or just the custom poster replacement guide for Metal Gear Solid 5. You can see this whole thing is already in text with a bunch of pictures on my Nexus Mods page, but I'm going to, do it in video and see if that is more helpful or more clear and show, kind of get in depth on how some of the Photoshop files and stuff that I put together works. So here it is, custom posters. A couple things that we're going to need to get started is I'm using Photoshop Creative Cloud, and you need a NVIDIA plugin to save images as a DDS, which is just it's a texture file. You can also get this for other versions of Photoshop, and a GIMP, if you're using that, which is a free alternative, has a similar extension that you can just find on Google or whatever. I'm using Photoshop for this, so that's what I'm gonna stick with. There's also the poster replacements and cardboard boxes mod, which includes some very important modder resources that I'm going to be making use of, as well as a couple of things that I've found on my own. So you're going to need that. You're also going to need these file management tools, which I'll get to later. Just download them, they're in a zip file. And then finally, Snakebite. If you've ever modded MGS5 before, you probably already have this. We're going to use it for installing and some basic building stuff. All right, so first we're going to go look at. So I have all of these Photoshop templates. They're included on the download on the page. So if we open them up, we're going to start with the open world poster, which is that's what the actual poster looks like when you pick it up out at a base or at mother base or wherever you are. It's a 512 by 1024 pixel image. Rotated, it's going to be horizontal, and you'll if it's a vertical poster, it'll be rotated. And if it's horizontal, it'll just be the same. So here I have a finished example already done. If I rotate it just for viewing pleasure, it looks like this. It's AK-47. This is going to be for replacing the Soviet soldier image. But again, you have to rotate it back because it rotates everything later while you're in the game. This is pretty simple. You just copy it into the thing, make sure it's in this blue rectangle here. These little black bars at the top and bottom are not shown. And then there's a couple of optional things. First, mostly for in the menu. So this is the menu icon when you're picking which poster you want to put on the box. I'm saying it's optional just because sometimes it can be a little confusing because each poster has its own function. So even if you're replacing what the poster looks like, enemies are still going to treat it as though it's like a Soviet soldier. So it's up to you whether you want to replace it or not. For the purposes of this example, I will. And then again, here's a finished example. Another optional thing is for if you go into the documents thing in your mother base database, it'll show a little picture of the poster with a short description. Same thing, it's optional. Most people probably won't even care. But now we're getting to the meat of it. So we have this is sort of a map of how it's going to appear on your box. So our starting image, I'm going to sort of recreate AK-47 here. So we have this image that we're starting with. And I have this big guide with all these text and color boxes. For this, since it's just going to be the front of the box, going to get our image and drag it in and put it on top. I'm going to disable the text for now because I don't really need it. And all you have to do is just resize it so that it is, in your eyes, appropriately fitted. Usually I recommend leaving a little bit of space on the sides, tops, and bottoms just because it feels too full, and we're also going to be getting a small outline over this whole image. I'm using mostly transparent images. You're free to do whatever you want. I just think the transparent ones look best. So when we do that, we're going to put it in. This is pretty basic, so I'm just going to kind of leave it as it is, except, and then we need to drag it into this little layer group that says put your stuff here. We're going to stick it there, open up, and put it on the front area right here. And then I'm going to change the background color just because I think it looks better with a dark outline. This background color is what is going to make up the outline around the whole thing. I also have some templates here if you want a sort of a reference guide. And then, so we have it in this group that we want. So we're just going to duplicate the whole group. We're going to put it into our mask guide. Duplicate. And then this is another box. I guess I don't really need that to be open. So for the mask guide, we have this whole thing. It's a similar idea. It's just the map is laid out a little bit different. And the hardest part is that the front parts are sort of rotated and not connected in a weird way. So what we're going to do to a shortcut to sort of get everything to fit right is to shrink it by exactly 66.67, or just 2/3 of the size. That whole group, shrink it. Then we're going to enable this little yellow box. This little yellow box is aligned perfectly with the sort of guide. So then what I like to do is usually start with the top part. And for the top part, you have to, hold on, get color stuff out of the way. You have to rotate the whole thing by 90 degrees exactly. So just hold shift and you can get a quick and easy thing to do that. Just try to line it up as close as you can with this little red guide here, like so. Okay, so then this is where it gets a little bit complicated. We're going to select just the layer that your image is on. We're going to draw this little box and try to get it right where the red and the green touch each other. I guess it's kind of purple because it's semi-transparent. And we're going to do right click it and do, okay. The layer has to be rasterized for some reason. So rasterize it if you need to, and then new layer via cut. And we're going to draw that exact same rectangle again. New layer via cut. And we're going to take those two new layers, which we just cut out, new layer via cut. So we should have two rectangles and then two halves of our person, of our image. So click those two images and link them. Okay, so now they're linked. We need to make sure that they stay linked because they have to line up pretty much exactly. Then we're gonna go into sort of the transform area, hold Alt, and then drag our center right here. You don't have to do that, but I think it makes it way easier because then it just slots into place. You can just make sure it lines up with our little area again. There we go. And then make these two rectangles invisible. So we have our image sliced up. You're going to do a similar thing if you have a horizontal image, especially if you have one that, if you're using sort of, if you're replacing one of the horizontal posters like pause or the model, and you have the extension part, which is visible when you're prone. You're going to have to do the same thing and just slice up your horizontal image so that it fits with that. There are also the flaps, which will cover part of the box when you're not prone. All right, so then once you have your image in place, you're going to take that align group again, make our text invisible, take that align group again, duplicate it. Actually, before we duplicate it, we're going to do a layer style. We're going to give it a stroke because we want this to have a little outline around it. Now, how big you want your stroke is totally up to you. but I find to match these sort of in-game posters that exist, somewhere between 10 and 13 pixels outside. The color doesn't matter, and you'll see why in a second. So do that. Then duplicate your group. Boop. And then you're going to merge the group, because basically the way it works is that we're going to use a clipping layer on this pink thing here. You know what? Make sure when you do that your boxes are invisible, because we don't want those to be outlined. So front, there we go. Sometimes it just toggles that for no particular reason. I don't know why. Merge. So this little stroke around here, we want that to be part of our clipping layer. There might be a better way to do this. I don't know what it is. So then make your water and filled outline backdrop, which is from the modder resources. Make that into a clipping mask. And just for that, and disable the color guide, and you'll see this pink area is basically what is going to be visible on our box from our image guide here. What parts are going to be visible? So then you're going to take that merged group, you're going to duplicate it into the shine guide. The shine guide is over here. Basically determines what parts are going to have a sort of poster papery sheen around them. This part is pretty easy because basically all you have to do is copy it. It's the same map as the mask guide, so just copy it, enable the shine backdrop layer, and do it as a clipping mask again. All right, so then we have shine, we have our mask guide, we have our image guide, as well as our other ones that we worked on before. So to set this up, this is when we're going to start saving things as DDS files. So what you want to do is go back to those modding resources that you downloaded, find the poster that you want to overwrite, in this case the Soviet soldier. Just copy it, the whole folder, paste it somewhere. And so I have included all of these ones. The poster modding guide only has the mask guide, the image guide, and the shine thing. It's missing some of these. I forget which ones. I will include on the Nexus mods thing, or maybe I'll just make my own little collection of these assets, these file names, because the file names are what are important. We're going to have to overwrite these. So anyways, save. In Photoshop, you're going to go to Save As. With your extension, you're going to see that there's a new choice for D3D/DDS, which is Direct 3D something. Then just go to where your folder is and overwrite the correct one. So in this case, it's going to be LYM. Save it there. For this, make sure you have RGB for BPP, no alpha. The no alpha is important. None of these images can have alpha because that's just not how they work. You have to have some sort of colored background or something. Save it. Do that for all of your images. Make sure you're overwriting the correct ones. You're going to do that, however many times you want. Now, we're going to go to, if this is something you're only going to have to do once, with the archive unpacker, which is in the file management tools, the file monolith stuff that you also downloaded earlier. If you haven't done this before, just create a new folder that's for your archive, and then wherever you have the game saved, which by default is C, Steam Apps, Common. Go here. Oops, that's Grand Theft Auto. That's not what we want. Go to Master, and then select A chunk 7, chunk 2, and chunk 4. Those right there. And then click Unpack. This is probably going to take a while, and it's going to be like probably around 10 gigabytes. There's a lot of files to unpack. But once you've done that, you won't have to do it again. You can just skip this step every time you need to build a new one, unless of course you delete the files. Next, though, we're going to move to the file proliferator. Starting from the bottom here, check all these boxes and set your texture directory as where you just unpacked all of those files. I just did it to my desktop. Then your input files are going to be all those DDS textures that you just saved. So it'll be between 4 and 6 depending on what you decide to do, and make sure they all have those correct file names, which is hard because they're just a string of random numbers and letters. Do that, and then pick a place, just output it. Doesn't really matter where, just somewhere where you're gonna remember. This will take not very long. And then hit yes to delete the leftover folders. Boom, done. Then, once you have that, go to MakeByte, which is included with Snakebite. It's just a mod building tool. Give all your stuff a little description. You can spell it badly if you want, and then pick that folder that you just proliferated to. And build it. And you have to, give it a name. It's going to pack it all into an MGSV file, which you'll then open and install in Snakebite. That part's pretty simple. If you're doing multiple posters, you can build them and install them separately, or you can do them all at once. It's up to you what you want to do. Then, open up the game. No, I don't want to do that. You'll see that the poster is replaced. And it's also in the menu here. And I got my little outline, and you can see the light reflect off of it, but only in certain areas. That's all good. You can also see that's in the database. Documentation, posters, Soviet soldier. And all these are still the same. But this is the one that we replaced. You can replace as many posters as you want. And you'll also see them out in the world. Since I did the Soviet soldier, there are no Soviet soldiers view here, but that's the guide. Again, if this version is not clear, you can always go and read it on the website. I'll put stuff like important file names, and I think I'll probably put my own poster modding resources on there just so you don't have to go and dig around in a bunch of files to find exactly what you need. Thank you.